6:14, police are working to remove protesters on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill. This is a developing situation as we speak right now. Our Kylie Panetta has been out there since very early this morning and active scene. Kylie, tell us what you're seeing right now.
Caroline and Amy, things have changed drastically since we last checked in about an hour ago. You can see behind me there are tons of students here, and we're going to walk towards the situation where you can see there are police here as well. Police just took a handful of students away in handcuffs. You can see there are students chanting here. We'll let you listen in for a second. Police are yelling at students to vacate the area, and you can see there are several police officers here involved. I would say dozens. This again is a very different scene from what we saw about an hour ago. There are police officers that were tearing tents down and trying to get students to vacate the area. But students seem very determined to stay. Like I mentioned, there were several students taken away in handcuffs.
I know a lot's going on there. What are you seeing right now?
Amy and Caroline, things have escalated a lot in the last hour or so. Just 40 minutes ago, we'll step out of the way and show you kind of what's going on. There are police officers here, but about 40 minutes ago, there was a verbal warning for students to vacate the area here, the quad here on UNC's campus. And that warning was that at 6 o'clock, they would start enforcing vacation. They would tell people they need to leave. They would start, enforcing students to leave the area. And police have been doing that. You could see that there are lots of tents torn down behind these officers here. There has not been any major violence. I have not seen any weapons or pepper spray used, but several students have been detained in handcuffs. Several of them, it looks like we're witnessing one right now. There's some slight resistance as well. There are a lot of students here videotaping, capturing the moments on camera as things happen, as students are handcuffed. We did see a cart take away two students in handcuffs along one of the paths here. And other students here participating were throwing things in the path of that cart to try and get the cart to not drive away. Again, these are UNC police officers here on campus enforcing this notice to vacate, where students have been here. This is day 5 of this encampment, and we'll walk over towards this way. You can see a huge crowd of students gathered watching as some students are detained. Police officers kind of forming this line here to try and enforce this notice to vacate here on Polk Place, UNC's campus. You can see some students getting very angry as police officers form a line here on campus. Again, the notice to vacate was a verbal notice just shortly before 6 o'clock, around 5:40. We arrived here, we were checking in with you guys around 5:10 this morning, and this was not the scene. Things were very calm. Students were sleeping in their tents, in their sleeping bags, and police came around 6 o'clock to start enforcing this notice to vacate. You can see they are also detaining students as well. We haven't received any official word about what those students may face, if they face any charges or any kind of repercussions from the school either. But you can see this one student here being taken off, several students being taken off and resisting, not wanting to obviously leave this space here on campus. It looks like there's another police officer cart being assembled over here, and looks like these students are being taken by police. You can see not willingly. This student does not want to go, but police have handcuffed her. Looked like with zip ties, actually. They're detaining students here on UNC's campus. Again, this is all a situation that's been unfolding in the last 30 minutes or so. Things have really escalated here. And as we've shared during our coverage since this demonstration started last Friday, the group's demands for the university here, UNC Chapel Hill, include cutting ties from companies associated with Israel. And the organization that has been kind of, generating all of this is Students for Justice in Palestine. The university ordered students to remove this encampment here on Polk Place on Sunday. So they are in violation of that order. It is now Tuesday, and students have not left. You can see there are still dozens, and there's a lot left in the aftermath here. In about 30 minutes that police have been here. They've torn tents down, sleeping bags down, and as you can see behind me, they are enforcing this notice to vacate here on UNC's campus. The aftermath, as the grounds crews seem to be coming in, assessing maybe anything that they're being told to remove from the area. It looks like all these crews here in the yellow vests are going to start taking things off the quad here on UNC's campus. Again, this was organized by Students for Justice in Palestine. The university ordered students to remove this camp on Sunday, so they were in violation of that order. There are not many students left here, just a handful left here on campus here at Polk Place, UNC's campus. This is one of dozens of universities across the country that have been seeing protests and demonstrations like this. And it's really we've seen a lot of tension, understandably, in this entire situation. There were students that came to voice their opposition for what's going on here with these demonstrations. And then, of course, there were, I would say, 100, if not 200 students here this morning sleeping in tents and sleeping bags. And then, of course, police came in and started saying that they were going to enforce that notice to vacate. You can see some students here packing things up, trying to maybe save some of the things that they brought with them to this encampment before it's taken away. But a lot of the tents, air mattresses, things like that were thrown around as police were trying to enforce that order for them to vacate. We see these grounds crews now coming in with trash bags as well. So it looks like they are going to start removing a lot of the signs and items left behind by these students here on UNC's campus. Again, this is day 5 of this encampment protest here, again, organized by Students for Justice in Palestine. And it's really been unfolding this morning. A lot of different things happening, moving parts, and we've seen, things were calm before the sun rose, and then that notice to vacate was given, and officers came in, and things, understandably, not so calm anymore.
And Kylie, you've been out there, like you just mentioned, and you've been able to actually speak with some of these protesters. We do know that a lot of folks there are students of UNC Chapel Hill, but it's also important to note that some folks are outsiders, not currently students, and are there from other parts of town.
That's right. I mean, we saw signs for Duke University students. I actually, just before we came on air right now, I spoke with an NC State alumni who told me that he is Palestinian, his family is in Gaza, and he came out yesterday and was planning to leave today, just wanted to come out, have that one day of standing in solidarity with the other people here protesting.
It has been very active there on campus this morning. Police have been working to remove protesters who have been there on campus for several days. And it has been, again, a very active scene.
That's exactly right. Our Kylie Panetta has been on campus all morning at UNC Chapel Hill. She is out there live now. Kylie, what are you seeing right now?
Amy and Caroline, things are still going on here on UNC campus here in Chapel Hill. If I step to the side, you can see a large group of protesters. These are the protesters that were moved from the quad area, the Polk Place area, and they are now on West Cameron Ave. That's just off of that quad area, and there's police from several different departments. The Orange County Sheriff's Office showed up about 10-15 minutes ago. UNC police are here. Looks like a few different agencies are here to try and enforce the university's notice to vacate. This is really a very big change from what we saw around 5 o'clock this morning. There were students in tents and sleeping bags on the quad. They were, peaceful, a lot of them asleep. And then there were several people that came around giving them a verbal notice to vacate by 6 o'clock. So they were given about a 20-minute notice verbally to vacate. And then police came in around 6:05 and started enforcing that notice to vacate. We have seen several, I would say at least a dozen students be detained and taken away. It seems like they're being held. And we're not exactly sure what kind of repercussions they might be facing here on UNC's campus for being here and for not abiding by that notice to vacate, but we are, of course, monitoring that situation. Seems like police are now moving across the street, some of them, and they are moving in slightly to try and break up this situation. We have, kind of seen this evolve throughout the morning from a very calm situation just before the sun rose to now what it is, which is, a lot of protesters out here in the street as police of several different agencies work to diffuse the situation and enforce that notice to vacate.
Can you talk to us a little bit about, just from what you're seeing, the size of the crowd? I know earlier, a couple hours ago, we were seeing that large presence on Polk Place. Now that they've been asked to vacate, we're obviously still, from our eyes, seeing a lot of folks out there. Can you tell, has the crowd grown at all? Is it about the same as what you were seeing earlier?
I would definitely say it's gotten smaller. I would say there were at least 100, maybe even 200 protesters on the quad earlier. And since that notice to vacate was given, since some protesters have been detained, things have definitely gotten smaller. The crowd has gotten smaller, but there are, as you can see behind me, dozens, maybe still close to 100 people here that are still very determined to stay here. And they're making it very clear that they don't want to leave, and a lot of them are resisting. At this point, they're all resisting that order to vacate here on UNC's campus.
Kylie, earlier, about an hour ago, when police really started to move in, we saw them trying to drive their ATVs down a pathway. There was some debris and people in the way at that point. Those folks, some were removed, some were detained. Since then, we've seen even more law enforcement officers arrive. Can you tell us a little bit about that now? The Orange County Sheriff's Office is there.
Yeah, so we are seeing police presence and law enforcement of a lot of different agencies. Like you mentioned, there were some UNC officers, UNC police and officers that were here on campus driving a cart, and when they would detain a few students, they would take them away in that cart. And some protesters who were detained, and there were other protesters throwing objects in the way of that cart to prevent it from driving away. Things like tents, air mattresses, buckets. Nothing got very violent, but they were making it clear that they were not willing to leave, and they were trying to stop any situation where any protester would be detained and taken away from the quad area.
We obviously see a lot of law enforcement obviously still there behind you. Have you been able to hear any other messages from them? Is their messaging just still to vacate the premises, or what are you hearing from law enforcement right now?
They're really not saying much. When the Orange County Sheriff's Office drove up about 15 minutes or so ago, they drove up and just got out of their cars, and they didn't say anything. They really just stood there, and they've been they haven't been very vocal, and they also haven't been motioning or doing anything. They've kind of just been standing here, I think, feeling out the situation, seeing kind of how their presence will be responded to here on UNC's campus.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned a little bit earlier, Kylie, not every protester there on campus is a student. There are some outside folks there as well. Stay put. We'll be checking back in with you in just a little bit.